The kingdom of Lithara had always been a land of shadows and whispers, where the forests breathed secrets, and the mountains held the memories of kings long gone. In every corner of the realm, the people revered wolves, not just as animals, but as spirits that lived in the hearts of humans. Every child born was said to carry a wolf within, a reflection of strength, courage, and destiny. But sometimes, fate wove its own cruel patterns, and children were born without these sacred companions. Elara was one such child. From the moment she opened her eyes, the villagers noticed. No wolf spirit stirred within her, no silent shadow curled at her feet. Her heart, they whispered, was empty. Her parents tried to protect her, shielding her from the murmurs of disapproval, but whispers are never quiet in a kingdom that prizes power. Children ran past her with their wolves, laughing as their spirits leaped and danced around them, while Elara stood apart, feeling only the cold absence of something she had never known. Despite the lack of a wolf, Elara grew into a girl of rare kindness and quiet intelligence. She learned to read the language of the forest, to listen to the wind and understand its moods. Birds perched on her shoulder as if sensing the unusual stillness in her heart. She became skilled in ways others were not, learning to move through the shadows, to notice details invisible to most. Yet in the mirror of her soul, she saw only silence. The people of Lithara whispered of curses. Some said she would bring misfortune. Others said she would die alone, her heart never truly known. And yet, Elara lived stubbornly, quietly, learning to embrace her difference even as the world feared it. It was during the spring festival of the wolves, a time when the kingdom gathered to celebrate the bond between humans and their spirits, that her life began to change. The great plaza of the capital shimmered under lanterns, wolf-shaped banners fluttering in the wind. Nobles wore cloaks of silver and gold, their wolves prowling at their sides, tails high, eyes glowing with the light of their masters' hearts. Elara moved quietly through the crowd, her simple gown catching none of the colors or glimmers. No wolf walked beside her. No one expected her to be remarkable, but then she saw him. King Kale, the Alpha King of Lithara, strode across the plaza with a presence that made the crowd hold its breath. His wolf spirit, large and silver as moonlight, walked beside him, ears twitching and eyes scanning. Where Kale went, the wind seemed to bend, the shadows deepen and hearts thrummed faster. Tales of his victories were sung in every village, tales of his ruthlessness were whispered in every hall. Yet beneath the iron gaze, there was a loneliness few dared imagine. Their eyes met across the plaza, a glance that lasted only a moment, yet it felt as if time itself had paused. Kale, who had felt every heartbeat of his people, sensed something impossible. Elara's heart, though without a wolf, called to him in a way he could not ignore. It was faint, silent, almost a whisper in the vast orchestra of life, but to him it was deafening. He stepped closer, moving as though pulled by an invisible thread. The crowd parted, sensing the unspoken gravity, and murmurs swelled. The wolfless one, Kale sees her. Elara's cheeks flushed, and she looked away, afraid. She had never imagined the king noticing her, least of all in this way. She felt unworthy, small, and yet her heart pulsed with something unfamiliar, a timid, electric hope. "Who is she?" Kale's voice was low, more felt than heard, carrying across the plaza only to her ears. "She has no wolf, yet her heart calls to me." No one could answer. The nobles exchanged nervous glances. To defy tradition by showing attention to one without a wolf was unheard of. But Kale did not care. His gaze remained fixed on her, and in that moment the world shrank to a single thread connecting them. After the festival, the court buzzed with speculation. Kale did not speak of the girl publicly, but privately he could not forget the sound of her silent howl, the way her heart had reached across the invisible veil of his senses. That night, he walked among the castle corridors, restless. Moonlight spilled through the windows, silvering the stone walls. He thought of her soft eyes, of her quiet posture in the crowd, and the feeling was both thrilling and unsettling. Meanwhile, Elara returned to the safety of her small family estate on the edge of the city. She wandered through the gardens, touching the petals of white roses, listening to the soft chirping of crickets. Yet sleep would not come. In the silence of her room, she could still feel his gaze, like sunlight brushing her skin even though the sun had long set. Her heart thumped wildly, the first stirrings of a connection she could not name. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. The wind would shift when she entered a room, carrying faint whispers that seemed to call her name. The birds in the garden would gather, watching her with curiosity as if they sensed something awakening. She began to dream of forests she had never visited, of silver wolves with eyes like stars, of a shadowed figure calling her through the mist. Each dream left her trembling, yet longing for more. Then came the first direct encounter. Kale, unable to resist the pull any longer, arrived at her estate under the cloak of night. The gates were silent as he entered, and when Alara saw him standing beneath the moonlight, she gasped. He was more commanding in person, his presence filling the garden like a storm held at bay. "You feel it too," he said quietly, eyes searching hers. "I hear your heart. It calls for me, though you have no wolf." Alara shook her head, frightened and confused. I am nothing. I am not like the others. I have no wolf. My heart, it is silent." Kale stepped closer, the silver light of his wolf spirit glowing faintly behind him. "Your heart is not silent. It speaks in ways no wolf ever could. I hear it, and I will not ignore it." For a long moment she could only stare, her chest tight with emotion she had never felt before, fear, curiosity, and something deeper, a spark of longing she could not name. Kale's gaze held no judgment, no expectation, only acknowledgement, as if he had found a truth the world had refused to see. "You must be careful," he whispered, voice low. "Many will never understand. They will call you cursed. They will call me a fool for caring. But the bond between us, it is older than the wolves, older than the kings. It is something the world has forgotten." Alara's lips trembled. "I do not know if I can, if I deserve." "You do," Kale interrupted softly, lifting a hand to hover just above hers. "More than you know. And if you trust me, if you listen, I will show you a world where your heart is not empty but whole." A wind stirred suddenly, rustling the leaves, and for the first time, Alara felt a sensation she could not explain. A gentle resonance in her chest, as if her heart itself had heard the echo of a wolf-less howl and recognized a kindred spirit. But the night was fragile. Shadows shifted along the walls of the garden, and somewhere beyond the estate, eyes watched. Not all were pleased with this connection. In the distance, unseen, a figure of dark intent stirred. The kingdom that had celebrated wolves would not tolerate the rise of something new, something unbound by tradition. Kale lingered only for a moment longer. "Rest now," he said, stepping back into the darkness. "But know this, Alara, your heart will not stay hidden. I will hear it again, I promise." And then he vanished, leaving her alone with the echoes of possibility. Alara sat in the moonlight for hours, feeling her chest tighten and loosen in strange rhythms. Her life had been silent, unremarkable, constrained by the absence of the wolf she was meant to have. Yet now, for the first time, she felt a pulse, a song, a whisper of destiny. She did not understand it, but she would not ignore it. Above her, the stars gleamed like silver eyes, silent witnesses to the beginning of a bond that no kingdom, no tradition could break. Somewhere in the capital, Kale walked under the same sky, thinking of her, feeling the strange resonance of her heart in a way he had never known with any wolf. In the world of Lithara, a kingdom ruled by wolves and kings, one heart without a wolf had begun to howl. And the Alpha King had heard it. The night carried its own secret, heavy and sweet, and as Alara drifted into a dreamless sleep, she did not yet know that this was only the beginning. The winds whispered of trials, of shadows, and of a connection that could change not just her life, but the fate of all the kingdom. For in the silence of her heart, a storm was beginning to rise. The forest outside Lithara stretched like a living ocean of green, dense, and ancient. Sunlight filtered through the tall trees in golden ribbons, but even in the brightest hours, shadows lingered, curling around roots and rocks, whispering secrets only the patient could hear. Alara had never dared to enter it alone, not entirely, but now she felt a pull she could not ignore. Kale had returned once more to the edge of her family estate, his presence as commanding as the mountains themselves. His silver wolf spirit lingered at the edge of the tree line, silent and watchful. "You feel it, don't you?" Kale asked, his voice low, almost blending with the rustle of the wind. "The forest, it recognizes you, it is calling." Alara swallowed hard. "But I have no wolf. How can the forest care for me? How can I even belong there?" Kale's eyes softened. "You are not like the others, Alara, that is why it responds. The wolfless heart, it sees the world differently. You may not carry a wolf, but your soul, it resonates in ways even spirits cannot resist." She hesitated, fear and curiosity warring in her chest. Then, taking a deep breath, she stepped into the forest, Kale close behind. Each step she took seemed to awaken the undergrowth, the leaves trembling as if greeting her. Her heart pulsed strangely, as though the air itself sang back to her. For hours they moved through the forest, Kale pointing out streams that whispered of old magic, trees that remembered kings long dead, and stones etched with symbols that hummed with unseen energy. Alara began to realize that she had been seeing the world as flat and silent, when in truth, it had always been alive with voice and memory. "You are learning to listen," Kale said quietly, watching her eyes widen as a squirrel froze in the air above a branch, its tiny eyes reflecting the sunlight like glass. "This is how the wolfless learn. You feel rather than dominate. You sense rather than command." "That is a rare power." Alara's lips trembled. I feel strange things, but I do not understand them." Kale smiled faintly, a shadow of warmth that lit the stern angles of his face. "Feeling is the first step. Understanding comes later. You must trust yourself." The forest darkened as they climbed toward a glade hidden deep among the roots of ancient oaks. The air was cooler here, carrying the scent of moss and wet earth. And there, sitting quietly on a stone covered in lichen, was a wolf, but unlike any Alara had seen. Its fur was shadowed, black as midnight with eyes like molten silver, piercing yet distant. "This is no ordinary wolf," Kale whispered, crouching slightly. "It is a shadow wolf, a spirit of the lost alphas. It does not bond easily. Few can approach it without fear or death." Alara's pulse quickened. Her heart, for the first time, felt like it might leap from her chest. She wanted to run, to turn back, yet something inside her, the silent pulse Kale had heard, urged her forward. She stepped closer. The shadow wolf's eyes followed her, unblinking. The air seemed to thrum with anticipation. Kale held his hand near hers, not touching but offering silent support. "Go slowly," he advised. "Do not force it. Let it decide if you are worthy." Alara took another step, then another. Her chest tightened and her heart beat loud, echoing through the forest in rhythms she had never known. She reached out her hand, trembling. The wolf moved closer, circling, sniffing, testing. And then, in a moment that seemed to stretch forever, it touched her wrist lightly with its nose. A symbol glowed faintly where their contact had met, a mark shaped like a crescent moon wrapped in silver light. Alara gasped. What is this?" Kale's jaw tightened, eyes never leaving the wolf. "It is a mark of recognition. The shadow wolf senses your heart, Alara. It knows you are different, special." The wolf stepped back, fading into the shadows as if it had never been there, but the mark on her wrist remained, glowing softly whenever Kale approached. Alara stared at her hand in wonder and fear. I do not understand. I have no wolf, and yet." Kale placed a steady hand over hers. "And yet you are already more than most can be. Your heart, it speaks in ways even spirits cannot ignore." The sun dipped low, painting the forest in shades of amber and rose. Kale and Alara began their journey back toward the estate, but the forest seemed different now, alive with quiet expectation. The wind whispered warnings they could barely hear, rustling through leaves with voices older than kings or wolves. That evening, as Alara tried to sleep, strange dreams overtook her. She wandered in a forest of silver and shadow, with wolves that spoke without words and a figure whose voice echoed in her chest rather than her ears. Each dream left her trembling, her pulse wild but also strangely uplifted, as if a part of her had always been waiting for this awakening. Days passed, and Kale returned often, guiding her through the forest, teaching her to listen to sense the hidden life around her. Their connection deepened, subtle yet undeniable. When he spoke, it was not just words. It was a sharing of presence, a silent communion of understanding. And every time he left, the forest seemed to hum in anticipation, as if awaiting the moment their hearts would truly call to each other. Yet, shadows were never far. At the palace, whispers grew louder. Nobles murmured about the Alpha King's interest in a girl without a wolf, calling it scandalous, unnatural, even dangerous. Some whispered of curses, others of ancient prophecies foretelling doom when the wolfless dared to rise. But Kale ignored them. He had seen her heart, and he would not let fear dictate his actions. One night the peace shattered. A shadow wolf, larger, darker, and angrier than any Alara had encountered, appeared at the gates of the capital. Its eyes burned with fury, its growl a low echo that vibrated through the streets. Panic spread. People ran, their own wolves leaping to defend them, but this shadow moved differently, with intelligence, purpose, and hunger. Kale acted without hesitation, drawing his sword, calling his wolf spirit to stand at his side. Ilara, standing at the edge of the plaza with her glowing mark, felt her chest tighten. Her heart thrummed not in fear, but in resonance with something primal she had never known. The air around her seemed to hum, the shadows bending toward her in response to the silent call of her heart. "You must stay back," Kale shouted. "This is dangerous." But Ilara could not. The shadow wolf was not just a threat, it was a test. And as it turned its silver eyes toward her, she felt a strange surge of power, a silent howl that no wolf could produce, radiating from her heart. The mark on her wrist flared brilliantly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Kale froze, sensing the energy. The shadow wolf paused, whimpering as if in recognition. And then, as if obeying a command it had never understood, it vanished into the darkness, leaving only the echo of its presence. Ilara sank to her knees, trembling. Her chest burned, her heart racing, but she had never felt so alive. Kale knelt beside her, his hands steady on her shoulders. "Do you understand now?" he whispered. "Your heart, it is powerful, more than a wolf, more than any spirit. You can reach things no one else can." Ilara looked at him, awe and fear mingling in her eyes. "But I am still nothing. I have no wolf. I am not like the others." Kale shook his head. "No, you are not like the others. That is why the kingdom needs you. That is why I need you." His gaze held a depth she had never seen before, fierce, protective, and impossibly tender all at once. The city around them was quiet now, shadows stretching long across the plaza. Yet somewhere beyond, the unseen watchers stirred. Not all were pleased that the wolfless heart had awakened its power. Forces older than kings, older than the forest itself, were beginning to take notice. Ilara's hand glowed faintly in the moonlight, her mark shimmering like a promise. For the first time, she felt she could meet whatever challenges came, but she knew the journey was only beginning. The forest had taught her to listen, but the world beyond would demand courage she had never needed before. Kale helped her to her feet, his presence steadying her trembling form. "Rest now," he said, his voice soft yet commanding. "Tomorrow we begin again, but remember, your heart will not stay hidden. The world will notice whether it is ready or not." Ilara nodded, feeling the strange thrill of destiny entwined with fear. The Alpha King had heard her silent howl. The Shadow Wolf had recognized her power, and the winds whispered that the trials ahead would be like nothing she had ever imagined. Somewhere deep in the forests of Lithara, the Shadow Wolves gathered, sensing the awakening of a heart unlike any before. And in that gathering, a single thought shimmered among the darkness. The wolfless one had begun to call, and her howl would not be ignored. The wind that night carried whispers of something ancient. The stars hung low over the forest of Lithara, silver eyes watching from above, as if waiting for what was to come. Ilara walked beside Kale, her hand brushing the tall grass, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. She no longer feared the shadows. They moved in rhythm with her heartbeat. Yet even as her confidence grew, so did the weight of responsibility. Her heart had awakened a power no one could ignore, and the kingdom, still unaware of her true strength, would not remain silent for long. Kale's presence beside her was steady, a mountain of strength that seemed untouchable. His wolf spirit, larger and more luminous than ever, walked just behind them, ears twitching at every rustle of leaves. But even Kale, the Alpha King, felt the uncertainty that now clung to the air. "The Shadow Wolves are not done," he said quietly, voice blending with the night. "They are testing you, testing us, and soon others will take notice of what you can do." Ilara's wrist glowed faintly, the mark from the first encounter with the Shadow Wolf pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered, though she knew Kale could hear the tremor in her voice. "I have never done anything like this. I am not a wolf. I don't even know if I can control it." Kale stopped and turned toward her. Moonlight spilled across his face, softening the stern lines of the king into something almost vulnerable. "You are not a wolf," he said firmly. "And that is why you are powerful. Your heart does not need claws or fangs. It speaks to spirits and men alike. Trust yourself, Ilara." "I do." For a moment, the forest was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Then a distant howl cut through the night, a low, mournful sound that carried the weight of centuries. Ilara's chest tightened as the hair on her arms rose. The Shadow Wolves were calling, their message clear. The hunt had begun. Kale's eyes darkened. "We cannot go back to the city," he said. "It will be too dangerous. We must find the source of these shadows before they reach the kingdom." They journeyed deeper into the forest, past streams that shimmered like liquid silver, and under arches of twisted branches that seemed almost alive. The further they walked, the more Alara felt the resonance of her heart pulsing in rhythm with the forest itself. She could sense the shadows before they appeared, a whisper of movement in the undergrowth, a flicker of silver in the darkness. As night deepened, they came upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. And there in the center was the shadow wolf they had first encountered, the one that had tested her heart. But it was not alone. Behind it, shapes moved, more wolves, their eyes glinting like stars, circling, waiting. Alara froze. Fear gripped her, but Kale stepped forward, placing himself between her and the creatures. "Do not let them intimidate you," he whispered. "Your heart is stronger than you think." The shadow wolves tilted their heads, their gaze fixed on Alara. The air shimmered with tension, and for the first time she felt the full weight of her unique gift. She extended her hands, feeling the pulse of her heart resonate outward. The mark on her wrist blazed with light, and the largest shadow wolf stepped forward, lowering its head as if bowing to her. "You can control them," Kale said softly, awe-threading his voice. "Do you understand? Your heart, it can command even the spirits of the lost alphas." Alara shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can." Kale reached for her hand, holding it gently. "Then let me guide you, trust me and trust yourself." She took a deep breath and focused, letting her heartbeat become the center of the forest. The shadows paused, their growls fading into low murmurs, listening. Slowly, they began to step back, circling around her instead of advancing. Alara's chest swelled with a strange mixture of fear and triumph. For the first time, she realized the truth Kale had been trying to show her. Her lack of a wolf did not make her weak. It made her a force no one could predict. The moment was fleeting. From the edge of the clearing, a movement caught her eye, a figure cloaked in darkness, watching silently. She did not recognize the face, but the presence radiated danger. The figure turned and vanished into the trees before Kale could see it. "Someone is watching," Kale said, his tone sharp. "We are not alone, this was only the beginning." Alara nodded, her heart still thrumming with power. I think I understand now. My heart, it speaks, it calls the shadows, and it commands them." Kale studied her, eyes dark with intensity and admiration. "Yes, but power like this, it is dangerous. You must learn to control it completely, or it could destroy you and me if we are not careful." They camped in the clearing that night, the shadows of trees stretching long under the silver light of the moon. Kale kept watch, his wolf spirit resting alertly nearby, while Alara sat quietly, hands glowing faintly as she practiced sending pulses of energy into the air. She was beginning to feel the rhythm of her power, how it responded to her emotions, how it could calm or stir even the most restless spirits. In the stillness, Kale leaned closer, voice soft, almost vulnerable. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met, Alara. Brave, kind, and unbound by fear. The kingdom may never accept you, but I cannot let you face this alone." Alara's heart tightened, a mixture of longing and fear. "I don't know if I'm ready to be seen like this, to be powerful, to be noticed." "You are already noticed," Kale said, eyes locking with hers. "By the forest, by the shadows, by me, and soon by the whole kingdom. You cannot hide what you are, but you can choose how you face it." The night deepened and sleep crept upon them, though uneasy. Alara dreamed again of forests bathed in silver light, of shadow wolves bowing to her command, and of Kale standing beside her, his hand reaching out through the mist. Each dream left her trembling, yet filled with a strange courage. Morning came with mist curling around the trees, hiding the forest in a ghostly veil. Kale and Alara rose and continued their journey deeper into the unknown, guided by whispers of the shadow wolves and the strange resonance of her heart. Each step was a lesson, each breath a test. By midday, they reached the ruins of an ancient temple, half swallowed by the forest. Stone columns, carved with symbols older than memory, jutted from the earth like broken teeth. The air was thick with magic, and Alara's pulse thrummed in response. She could feel the power lingering in the stones, the echoes of kings and alphas who had walked before. "This place," Alara whispered. "It feels alive." Kale nodded. "It is alive. This was once a sanctuary for the wolf spirits. If you are to master your heart, you must learn here." As they stepped inside, the shadow wolves gathered around the temple's edges, silent sentinels. The largest among them moved to the center, eyes glowing softly, waiting for her command. Alara's chest tightened. Fear, excitement, and responsibility all swirled together. She closed her eyes, focusing on her heartbeat, feeling it resonate outward into the temple, into the shadows, into the very stones beneath her feet. Slowly, the wolves relaxed, their bodies shifting as if acknowledging her authority. Kale watched her, awe and pride clear in his eyes. "Do you see? You are not weak. You are more than the wolves. You are extraordinary." But just as relief washed over her, a distant rumble shook the ground. Dust fell from the temple's ceiling, and a chilling wind swept through the ruins. From the darkness, a shadowy figure emerged, taller and more menacing than the wolves themselves. Its eyes gleamed with intelligence and malice. Alara's heart raced. What is that?" Kale stepped in front of her, sword in hand, wolf spirit bristling. "It is one of the lost spirits, a guardian of old secrets. It has been watching you, testing you. And now, it will decide if you are ready." Alara's hands glowed brightly, the mark on her wrist blazing like a silver flame. She took a deep breath, letting the rhythm of her heart guide her. She felt fear, yes, but also strength, a courage born of trust, of connection, of the bond she shared with Kale. The figure paused, tilting its head as if considering her. Then, with a sudden surge, it leapt forward, and the temple seemed to tremble under the force of its presence. Kale's hand found hers. "Together," he whispered. "Trust your heart, trust me." Alara nodded, and for the first time she felt the full extent of her power, not a wolf's strength, not a spirit's instinct, but her own, wild, untamed, and magnificent. The shadow figure halted, its eyes reflecting awe, fear, and recognition. And in that moment, Alara knew. She was no longer the girl without a wolf. She was something far greater. The ruins of the ancient temple trembled under the weight of destiny. Shadows shifted, twisting into forms that were half wolf, half spirit, circling Alara and Kale like dark waves. The air was thick with the scent of moss and magic, the remnants of power older than the mountains themselves. The guardian, a towering figure of darkness shaped from the forest's own memories, stood across from them, its silver eyes glowing with a cold, ancient intelligence. Alara's chest pounded, but she did not falter. Her heart, which had once been silent, now thrummed with a rhythm so strong it echoed through the forest, through the ruins, through the very soul of the kingdom. The mark on her wrist burned like moonlight in fire, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Kale, standing beside her, felt it too, the resonance of her courage, her strength, and her unwavering will. "You are ready," Kale whispered, voice low but steady. "Your heart is the key. Trust it and trust yourself." Alara nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. The fear was still there, yes, but it was no longer paralyzing. It had transformed into power, a quiet, unstoppable force that radiated from within her. She stepped forward, extending her hands toward the guardian. The shadows recoiled at her presence, shivering under the intensity of her pulse. "I am not afraid," she said, her voice carrying across the ruins. "I am not a wolf, but my heart will lead." The guardian tilted its head, watching her with eyes that seemed to pierce her very soul. It let out a low growl, the sound echoing off the broken stones like distant thunder. And then, slowly, it moved forward. Not in attack, but in challenge, a test of will, of strength, of the heart itself. Kale drew his sword, silver light gleaming along the blade. His wolf spirit prowled beside him, muscles tensed, ears alert. "Do not hold back," he urged. "This is your moment. Everything you have learned, everything you are, it is yours to command." Alara closed her eyes, letting her heart guide her. The mark on her wrist flared brighter, the silver light spilling out into the shadows, reaching the guardian. She felt the rhythm of her heartbeat, the pulse of the forest, the silent call of the wolfless soul within her. And then, with a sound that was more felt than heard, a deep, resonant howl that seemed to come from the very core of the world, the guardian halted. Time seemed to stop. The shadows paused mid-motion. Even Kale's wolf spirit stiffened, sensing the ancient power that had awakened. Alara opened her eyes and saw the guardian's form flicker, its silver eyes reflecting not hostility but recognition. "You are different," the guardian said, voice like wind through stone. "Stronger than the wolves, braver than kings, your heart, it calls in ways I have not seen for centuries." Alara felt a shiver run through her, but she held steady. "I do not seek to destroy," she said softly. "I seek only to protect, to heal what has been broken." The guardian's form shifted, the darkness unraveling like smoke in sunlight. "Then prove it," it said. "Prove that the heart can be stronger than the fangs of the world." Alara took a deep breath and focused, sending her pulse outward again. The mark on her wrist blazed brighter than ever, the light spreading into every shadow of the ruins, reaching every corner of the temple. The guardian staggered, then bowed, lowering its head in acknowledgement. The shadow wolves surrounding them howled in unison, their cries joining her heartbeat, forming a harmony that resonated across the forest. Kale's eyes were wide with awe. You did it," he whispered. "Your heart, it commanded even the oldest spirits." Alara's knees weakened, but Kale caught her, holding her steady. "You are extraordinary," he said, voice husky with emotion. "Not because of a wolf, not because of power alone, but because you believed in yourself." The ruins grew still, the tension melting into calm. The guardian faded, leaving only the echoes of its presence and the soft glow of Alara's mark. The shadow wolves lingered a moment longer, then disappeared into the forest, leaving the pair alone in the silent temple. Exhausted but elated, Alara sank to the ground. I never thought I could do this." Kale knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "You always could," he said gently. "You just needed to see it for yourself, and now the kingdom will see it too." The journey back to the capital was quiet. The forest seemed to recognize their victory, the leaves rustling in soft applause. Birds trilled songs that felt like celebration, and even the wind seemed lighter, carrying away the shadows that had followed them for so long. As they approached the city gates, the kingdom itself seemed to hold its breath. Rumors of Alara's power had already spread, the wolfless girl who had tamed the shadows, who had faced the guardian of ancient spirits, who had stood beside the Alpha King and emerged unbroken. Nobles and villagers alike watched as Kale rode beside her, his silver wolf spirit prowling silently, and felt something shift in their hearts. Alara felt the weight of eyes upon her, yet she did not falter. For the first time, she realized that her heart, her silent, wolfless heart, was enough. Stronger than fear, stronger than expectation, stronger than tradition. She walked beside Kale, not as a girl without a wolf, but as a force of her own making, a heart that could call, command, and heal. The palace gates opened, and Kale led her into the throne room. The courtiers murmured, some in awe, some in disbelief. Kale turned to them, voice echoing through the hall. "This is Alara. She is no ordinary girl. She is a heart without a wolf, and yet she commands powers we do not understand. She has proven herself where many with wolves have failed." Alara's heart beat fiercely, but she held her gaze steady. The whispers of the court were like wind in the trees, present but unable to shake her resolve. Kale stepped closer, placing a hand over hers. "We will face the future together," he said softly. "No curse, no shadow, no fear can separate us now." The days that followed were filled with wonder and change. Alara trained under Kale's guidance, learning to harness her heart's resonance with precision. The shadow wolves returned occasionally, but now they responded to her command, loyal not because of instinct, but because of recognition. She walked through the kingdom with confidence, her presence no longer whispered about as a curse, but celebrated as a new kind of strength. Yet the greatest transformation was within her. She no longer felt incomplete. She no longer feared her difference. The absence of a wolf had once been her burden, but now it was her gift. She could command without dominance, lead without fear, and reach the hearts of those who could not be touched by traditional power. Kale watched her closely, admiration and something deeper in his eyes. Nights in the palace were spent in quiet conversation, in walks through moonlit gardens, and in moments of shared silence where no words were needed. Their bond had grown beyond attraction. It was a connection of soul and spirit, heart and trust. One night, as they stood atop the palace walls, looking out over the kingdom, Kale spoke softly. "Your howl reached me when no one else could hear it. You taught me that strength is not only in fangs or crowns, but in courage, in compassion, in heart. You are the wolf of my soul, Alara." Alara smiled, warmth flooding her chest. "And you are my anchor, Kale. Without you, I would not have learned to trust myself. Together, we are stronger than any shadow." The moon rose high, bathing the city in silver light. Somewhere in the distant forests, shadow wolves howled in acknowledgement, a chorus that carried across the mountains and valleys, echoing the unity of two hearts that had faced fear, darkness, and destiny, and had emerged triumphant. Yet even in victory, the world remained vast, mysterious, and unpredictable. Beyond the borders of Lethara, unseen forces stirred. The kingdom was free from its immediate dangers, but shadows always linger, and new challenges awaited. But Kale and Alara, their hearts intertwined, knew they could face whatever came together. Alara looked at the city below, the wind carrying her hair like a river of night. Her heart, once silent, now sang with a resonance that could not be ignored. "We are ready," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "No matter what comes, we are ready." Kale took her hand, holding it tightly. Always, he said. And in that word, in that connection, the kingdom and the forest, the wolves and the shadows, all felt a harmony that had not been known for centuries. For in a world that revered wolves and feared difference, a heart without a wolf had spoken, and the Alpha King had listened. Together they had rewritten the rules of power, the meaning of courage, and the shape of destiny itself. The night carried their victory, but also a promise. The howl of fate would always continue, and wherever it led, they would face it as one.